COVID lockdowns let a lot of things fall through the cracks. We saw a lot of liberties sort of water away, kind of whittle away down to almost nothing. We saw a lot of this out of California. Massive lockdowns, harder than other lockdowns throughout the country. And one of the really problematic limitations that Governor Gavin Newsom imposed was limitations on the free exercise of religion. Specifically, we're talking about a lawsuit involving a church called Harvest Rock Church that sued Gavin Newsom and California for violating their right to practice their religion. This is a very interesting lawsuit. Now, there was a ruling that came out today. Gavin Newsom lost the lawsuit. Big win for religious liberty. Good news. Free exercise. Now, Gavin Newsom and California, they got to pay $1.35 million back for church discrimination. So California people should be very happy about that. More of your money is just being thrown away by stupid political politicians. We've got California's embattled Governor Newsom, Gavin Newsom, has been dealt a fresh blow after a federal judge ordered him to pay $1.35 million over the state's draconian lockdown of 3,000 churches over the coronavirus. Now, this was written by Tori Richards a couple days ago over from the Washington Examiner, if you want to go check them out. In his capacity as governor, Newsom was ordered to pay the costs and attorney's fees, which means the judge was not happy about this. You know, typically, if it's sort of a middle, you have a reasonable debate. You know, I'm unhappy you did this. I'm unhappy you did this. Judge says, all right, you guys both pay for your attorneys. This was reasonable. You cover your own costs. Here, no. Judge said, nope, California, you're paying for that. You're covering costs and attorney's fees because this is so insane. You're paying their attorney's fees, which is warranted, in my opinion. In his capacity, the May 14th order told Newsom and all state officials to stop regulating church attendance. Wait, let me back up. The lawsuit was brought by a Pasadena church. It went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. There was a May 14th order that told Newsom and all state officials to stop regulating church attendance unless a specific set of infection statistics occur. He is the worst governor in America for religious freedom, said Matt Staver, founder of Liberty Counsel, a nonprofit law firm that is representing Harvest Rock Church. The church stayed open during the lockdown. The pastor and parishioners were threatened with daily criminal charges that were up to a year in prison for going to church. This is the nation's first statewide permanent injunction against COVID-19 restrictions on churches and places of worship. Newsom is facing a recall from governors who are angry over his COVID policies. So the nation's first statewide permanent injunction against COVID restrictions. What that means is that the court came down and said, you are not allowed to do this again permanently across the state. Big win. We see here along the way, what did Newsom do? What did he impose? What was the problem? Well, he said that, no, you can't go to church, but you can't sing. No singing. No outdoor churches on top of it. And you can't even have Bible studies. All right. So these are all very, of course, focused on religion. These are directly impacting religion. Religions sing, religions do church outdoors, religions do Bible studies and, theology studies. So it's different. It's not a content neutral application. It's not saying that everybody can't sing outside. Everybody can't study. It's saying, no, it's saying you can't go to a Bible study. You say, well, what? Well, what if I want to study geometry? You're going to stop me from studying geometry? Well, they're not talking about banning geometry studies. They're talking about banning Bible studies. And you say, well, I have a First Amendment right that says that you can't infringe on that. Newsom did anyways. The restrictions were only lifted when a series of reprimands came down from the Supreme Court, but Harvest Rock saw itself as an essential business, has stayed fully open since May 31st, 2020. Good for them. The ministry also has South Carolina's satellite churches in downtown LA, Santa Ana, and Corona. Newsom's COVID restrictions intentionally discriminated against churches while providing preferential treatment to many secular businesses and gatherings, Staver said. What's important is this ruling is permanent. He cannot ever do this again. Good. U.S. District Court Judge Jesus Bernal ruled that restrictions would only be allowed on church gatherings if child infections arise 100% statewide. Statewide cases are 26 per 100,000, or the ICU hospital bed capacity falls below 20%. So they set some standards, and they said at that point, the state may only impose restrictions identical to other gatherings. So you can only start, imposing draconian laws that infringe on a fundamental constitutional right if it reaches a certain threshold. And we've sort of talked about this framework about analyzing what the government can do when it infringes on your constitutional rights. We've got different levels of scrutiny. We have what's called a rational basis scrutiny, which is basically saying that the government can impose a law against you if it doesn't infringe on a fundamental constitutional right and they have a rational basis for doing it. So if it's like, well, the government, this doesn't really impact you at all, and this is kind of a thing that government does. We say normally there's a rational basis for this. They want to increase that tax, or they want to pass this law that says you can't do that. That's rational. Doesn't infringe on your right to free speech or your right to religion. So we let them do that. But when we start talking about the more important rights like religion, we have to raise that standard of scrutiny up. We have an intermediate level of scrutiny. And when we talk about the most important rights, we have strict scrutiny. That means we are looking at the government and we're saying, hey, you cannot impact this right unless you go through a very rigorous analysis. And this needs to be the least restrictive rule or law or regulation that you can possibly muster if we're going to allow this to happen. And it has to be absolutely necessary, meaning that there's nothing else you can do to solve this problem except passing this law. So it's a different standard than just, well, do whatever you want, government, whatever's rational. It's very strict. And so what we're talking about here, about these numbers, is sort of kind of, cobbling together that standard, saying you can only impose these draconian anti-religion rules if it's absolutely necessary. I mean, if the numbers just get to the point where there's nothing else we can do, that you have to do it, only then maybe we can consider it. Well, Newsom, didn't really abide by that. Any new public health precautions on religious worship services and gatherings at places of worship not in the guidance are included. So the state updated its COVID-19 policy then on May 4th after one of the Supreme Court rulings. They said effective immediately, location and capacity limits on places of worship are not mandatory but strongly recommended. Additionally, the restrictions on indoor singing and chanting are recommended only. Right? So he just changes it. Gavin Newsom has always put the health and well-being of Californians first, resulting in the lowest positivity rates in the country and over 35 million shots in the arm, more than any other state, said Newsom. Settlement resolves the case while providing clarity and certainty to the public, he says. So he lost big time, and he's trying to make up for it. This is a settlement. This resolves the case while providing clarity and certainty to the public around public health standards that are applicable to places of worship following recent rulings by the U.S. Supreme Court. Like he's just following guidance, Oh, well, I mean, I was just trying to follow the rules, and now that I know what they are, thanks to the United States Supreme Court, now we're just going to follow the rules. And I'm glad that we have clarity and certainty now. You know exactly what you were doing. You were punishing religious organizations. You were slapping them in the face single-handedly, talking specifically about banning singing, outdoor worship, and Bible studies. Specifically. It was directed at the religious. You had a vendetta against it. And the Supreme Court said you can't do that. So now you're trying to rewrite history. Not going to allow it here, my friend. This was the original, this is the final judgment. And the permanent injunction. So it is hereby ordered. This is off by the judge, written off by the judge. Harvest Rock Church versus Newsom says that the governor of California and all others in active concert or participation with him are hereby permanently enjoined statewide from issuing or enforcing regulations issued in connection with the COVID-19 state of emergency that impose any of these restrictions on places of worship. Cannot do that anymore. Right? And define what those numbers are. We already talked about those. Any new public health precautions on religious worship services and places of worship not in the current guidance, unless those are identified, cannot be allowed. And any restrictions on any religious exercise of singing and chanting, also not allowed anymore. So basically everything he imposed, it's all being undone, which is great news. It is further ordered that the plaintiff are declared the prevailing parties. Big win for the church. Defendant is going to pay the plaintiffs $1.35 million for reasonable attorney's fees and costs. The interest is going to accrue in 60 days from the date that this is signed. So Mr. Gavin Newsom, my friend, you better cut that check quick. Otherwise, you're going to be paying interest. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Can't be retained. Got to pay that money. End of the deal. Signed off on by the honorable, very honorable Jesus Bernal. Good outcome on that. Some good news, right? Some good news from time to time from the justice system. Well done, Judge Bernal. Good outcome. Finally, some pushback from our judges. Let's take some questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have our first one from Sharon Quinn. He says, Newsom is the worst governor, period. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't live there, but everything I see out of that guy is just like, wow. And talk about a fall. I mean, he was, I think, getting primed up for president. Not anymore. We have See the Veil that says, yeah, those funds should be coming out of Newsom's personal bank account, not the taxpayers. Well, I don't think California even cares about taxes. So do they care? I mean, does anybody over there care? I mean, there are people that care, but they all left. They're gone. They're moving out. So everybody else there can just pay these bills all they want. Just, okay, whatever. Pay for everything. We have Chaskow says, who does Gavin think he is? Prime Minister of Canada? No, he's trying. Look, Gavin Newsom is like in a different league, I think. I think what they're doing in Canada is like a whole different ball game. I mean, Gavin Newsom is bad, but what we're seeing out of Canada is like, you can't, I don't think you can leave your house. There's a curfew. You can't leave your house. And if you travel to Canada, you have to, I think, sit there for 14 days. I listened to Viva Fry over at, on Locals at Viva Barnes Law. Oh my gosh. It's crazy. All right. We got Osak71 says, do you think if more lawsuits were filed, this nightmare would have ended sooner? I don't, unfortunately, Osak. I don't think so. I think that our courts and our judges were just as freaked out as everybody else, and they were going to be defaulting with the government. Look, remember, we have justice. Yes, we have a justice system, and we have a legal, system of courts. We have the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. But they are all part of the same government. Okay, so when they are... We structured it this way so we have a separation of powers and checks and balances between these three different branches, and we made it three so that you could have two against one and to solve any disputes. Kind of a beautiful system, except when all of them are in alignment against the citizenry, which is exactly what happened with COVID. All of the legislators were freaked out, so they were all buckling to pressure everywhere, just passing whatever laws they could. Same with governors, even conservative governors, most of them, they were all playing ball for a long period of time. Only kind of now are we starting to see some real significant pushback. Most everybody was playing ball, probably for good reason, because we just didn't know a lot in the early days. But there were situations where we had Tom Hatton here. There was a guy here in Arizona who was the CEO of Mountainside Fitness, Hero, filed a lawsuit against the governor here and said, hey, you are discriminating against us. On the same basis here that Harvest Church said, our governor and other people shut gyms down on the basis that there was a lot of people, I don't know what basis. I guess a lot of people are breathing in there and moving and touching things, which I guess is the same thing that happens anywhere else that you go, like a grocery store, fruit aisle, picking up this, putting that down, squeezing that, popping that, whatever. So it's the same concept, but they singled out gyms. Well, why was that? And so Tom Hatton from Mountainside Fitness filed a equal protection claim saying you are treating our business differently than the grocery store right there, or than the hairstylist, or than that golf course. They're all still open, but you're singling us out. That's not allowed. Well, he lost his lawsuit. Why? Because the gyms are not a fundamental right. They're not like a place of worship. But even the places of worship were being sort of nudged aside for the time being due to the courts. So when we ask the government to sort of correct governmental problems, it's kind of like asking the police to investigate themselves and then find that they did something wrong. The government is going to support itself. If you file a lawsuit against the governor, against the state legislature, and you have a good basis for it, and you're in the middle of a crisis, the court's going to come back and say, listen, sorry, it's a good claim, but I got to default with the governor. I got to default with the legislature because they're going to set a precedent now that has to affect everybody in society. So, they're all walking a tightrope. I don't envy them in that position. I was very upset with a lot of what I saw, a lot of poor leadership, I thought, during the COVID era. But, we give people a little bit of leeway on that. And I made a post in Locals today about that this morning. We want to give our leaders some leeway when they act in good faith and they make honest mistakes. It's when they act in bad faith and when they make mistakes and they don't own it or acknowledge it, or they're outright deceptive about it, when it becomes a problem and when I blow a gasket. So, the lawsuits could have continued, but I'm not sure that they would have done much. We have Nadar Blasier says, we got to put something in place so government neglect and corruption isn't paid with tax dollars. It needs to hurt whoever committed the act and hurt their own pocket. That's when Big Pharma gets $1 million fine, but made $500 billion on profits for the year. Doesn't matter to them if it isn't proportioned to them. It's their pockets. Yeah, this is a great point, and we talked about this previous. I forget what the context was, but there was, like Purdue Pharma and a lot of these big pharmaceutical companies, the people who are pushing and peddling the opioids all over the place that killed my brother and many, many other people in this country. They got sort of investigated and they got penalized and they got charged with crimes and they got convicted and all sorts of stuff. And it's like nothing. It's like a couple $1 million here and there. It's tip money for these people. It's the cost of doing business. And it's very unfortunate, but it's all part of this. It's all part of the system, right? These big corporations, they just funnel the money right back to the politicians who keep the grift going. We have Sharon Quidney says, don't forget that one of the principal aims of Marxism is the elimination of religion and the replacement of worship of and loyalty to God with worship of and loyalty to the state. Yep, it is the red godlessness of Marxism. It's the worst. We have Want to Know says, Rob, in Oregon, curfew is still on. We have a strain of COVID that comes out after 10 or 12, depending on the business. Yeah, that's an interesting new strain. It's weird. It's like, only certain areas like churches, it really affects you in churches, really affects you in gymnasiums. Also just gets like crazy wild after about 10 o'clock at night. It's COVID time. COVID wants to party. They're night owls out there and they're going hog wild. So you have to be safe in your home like a good little peasant sheep. Thank you for that. So I'm sorry to hear that. Want to know. I can't believe that Oregon is still on curfew. Curfew. Right now, it's May 2021. Wild stuff. All right. All of those great questions came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. As you know, we are totally demonetized here on YouTube. So if you want to support the show, the place to do that is at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I appreciate it. I try to add more value over there by posting stuff. And I'm trying to sort of increase that a little bit. But I'm also really excited about some of my other projects like the crypto channel and some of the other things that we're working on. So if you want to support the show, that's the place to do that. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com really means the world to me. I want to welcome 2 new people who are in the process of doing that or have already done it. We have Rocksteady is in the house. Welcome, Rocksteady. Grateful for your support. And I'm glad that you joined us. Same with you there, Nick AF. Nick AF. Whew. It's not like a little Nick, like medium Nick. It's Nick AF. Hard. So welcome to you, Nick. Glad that you're here with us. Great questions from those of you who are on the board. You know who you are. You keep the show lively and well, and I really appreciate it. If you want to sign up at Locals, you can get a lot of good stuff, including a copy of my book, which is down there at the bottom left. It is called Beginning to Winning: How to Fight Your Case and Succeed in the Criminal Justice System. You can download a copy of the slides that we went through. You can download a copy of my impeachment party document, as well as my existence system document that we heard somebody's working on today. It's available for you for free if you support us over there at Locals. We share links throughout the day. I posted a nice little, what did I post today? I don't know that it was nice, but I did post something today about COVID, because we can talk about some things over there that we can't talk about on this channel. So I wrote a little text thing. So go check that out if you're interested in that. We also have a monthly meetup coming up. We had our last one May 22nd last weekend, but we have our next one coming up June 26th. This is available for anybody who is supporting us over at locals.com. Totally free. A lot of fun. We had a good time. And we have another event coming up Saturday, June 12th. This is also for free for local subscribers. It's called Law Enforcement Interaction Training. We're going to be talking about how to deal with the police. So I'm still putting the finishing touches on this, but I think it should be fun. Hopefully I have my technology figured out. But I want you to come and join it because I want to start doing more of these things. We talk about locals like a community. We should sort of be acting like it from time to time. And so I appreciate all of those of you who are helping us to build that. Every single time that we sort of move somebody off of, maybe sort of relying on the big tech, off of YouTube, off of Facebook, off of Twitter, we're kind of nudging everybody to migrate to different platforms. And every time you do, it's like one new brick in the nice structure of a better place, a better community. And we really do mean that, appreciate it a lot. So that is it for me. Quick reminder, a couple other new channels down below. Got a new crypto channel that we just talked about yesterday. The IRS is trying to hack into your wallets. So they actually put out a request for information. They're looking for security experts so that the IRS can build a sort of a crypto hacking team that they can crack into your wallets and steal all your cryptocurrency. So that video came out yesterday if you want to check that out. A lot of fun going on over there. Also, a lot of new videos are coming out on our Arizona Law channel. So I know most of you, of course, are not charged with crimes in Arizona, but if you happen to know somebody that is, first and foremost, we would love it if you sent them our way so that we could have the opportunity to help, but they may also be interested in that channel. where they can learn about Arizona criminal cases. We have a whole great team of people here at the R&R Law Group. We're located in Scottsdale. We offer free case evaluations. We can help with any type of criminal charge in Arizona, things like DUIs, misdemeanors, drug offenses, felonies, traffic offenses, old criminal records, clearing up mugshots, restoring rights, right to vote, possess a firearm. There's a whole list of things that we can do. We're super passionate about it. We would love the opportunity to help. So if you happen to know anybody in the state of Arizona who does need some help, we would be honored and humbled if you sent them our way. It would really mean the world to us. And my friends, that is it from me for the day. We are going to be right back here, same time, same place tomorrow. It's going to be at 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. for that one Florida man out there, and all of the rest of you on the East Coast. Thank you so much for being with us today. Have a tremendous evening. Eat well, sleep well. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.